where I would like to start.
Yeah.
And I love all this stuff about set registry and all that. But from my perspective, 33 years old, been in the hobby for 4 or 5 years now. Why do I collect? Why do I have to build a set?
So I'll tell you, you don't. So set collecting is, you almost have to take money out of the equation. So I started talking about my Pokemon set. I was building that set for a different reason than most set collectors build sets. I was building it because I thought that the value of the set was not right. I thought it was going to increase in value. And that's not why most set builders build their sets. They build their sets because they are hoarders. They're collectors. They want to have all of them. They want to have a full set. It goes back to, some of the neuroses we have as lunatic collectors, right? I remember going to McDonald's when they had an Upper Deck basketball set, and Shaq was in it. It was a 50-card set, and it was hologram. And I had to go back and get the cards, even though I didn't really need to get the crappy plays. I just needed to have all 50 in my binder. Drake's Cakes, 92 Fleer with Shaq in it. The last guy I needed was Jeff Hornacek. Jeff Hornacek's not going to be worth anything, but I needed it to complete the set, right? 1985 Topps, I opened up packs because you try to build the set. Just like the sticker collectors for Panini Soccer now. That binder that they put together, the World Cup binder, not binder, the sticker booklet sticker album, it's not going to be worth much when you have the stickers off the card and they're stuck to the book sideways, but people buy the stickers to try to complete the album. They try to complete the set. 1985 Topps I was talking about while I was doing the Len Sakata. Take a look at what that guy looks like. He was on the Orioles. I'll never forget it because he's got weird glasses on in the picture. That was the last card I needed that I had to buy at a show to complete my 85 Topps set.
I vote, and Luca Nation, hit the like button, maybe comment. Instead of the offset Cardi B meal, I say Fanatics brings back packs in Happy Meals.
You know McDonald's does Pokemon packs, right?
I don't.
Yeah, they've done Pokemon several times. The last really cool one was when the Detective Pikachu movie was out.
What does this say about kids? Kids don't like sports anymore. They like Pokemon. Like I was collecting football and basketball when I was a kid. Pokemon, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's easily digestible. I'm pretty sure the McDonald's set was an 18-card set that had a Pikachu, it had a Charizard, it had all the, the main characters you'd expect. It had Mr. Mime because he played prominently in the movie. And it's easy, it's collectible, and kids like it because it's shiny.
When you were building your Pokemon set, and you were doing it because you thought the set was undervalued.
Yeah, I thought this was a set that is worth $1 million one day
together.
And yeah, combined. And I'm going to be able to build it. At the time, I thought I could build the set for $200,000. Okay. That's where I think it's worth $1 million, right?
Question.
Yes.
You could buy one Zard. You could have bought like 20 Blastoise, maybe?
Yeah.
20. You could have bought like 200 Pikachu, red cheeks and yellow cheeks.
Yeah.
Or you could have done the set.
Yes.
Which, now looking back, would you have done?
So that set, I should have bought the Charizard, or I should have bought, the Pikachus. I should have bought the main players. But here's the thing. That's because I was buying it because I thought it was undervalued, not because I needed to have the set. And it became almost like a neurosis. I got to finish the set. And then you could tell the cracks in the armor of, should I just sell this set? Should I stop? How many times did we ask people, should I really buy the Charizard? Because it wasn't cheap anymore. It wasn't undervalued. And as a matter of fact, I wound up buying 5 or 6 hollows at the end that I didn't have at the peak and I'm selling them at a loss because now I don't want to make the set. I'm actually mad about the set. So your question, it's funny. You're coming at it in a different way than a set collector would. You're coming at it saying, well, why should I build a set when fiscally speaking, I'll be better off owning just the stars and be able to sell those later. There are still people who complete the 1986 Fleer set. But you're right. The money might be better spent buying a bunch of Olajuwons and Jordans.
What modern day sets do you think will be collected? 2020 F1?
Maybe. It depends. So collecting
the full
the 2014 World Cup Prism set. right? Easy to collect, easy to build. First World Cup. I mean, it wasn't the first one, but like,
First Panini Prism World Cup, for sure.
the first Panini Prism World Cup, the 2012 Prism sets, right? I think people will build those, even just the base. Maybe try to put a PSA 10 set together or a PSA 9 set together, or a Beckett 9, because people were grading with Beckett a lot back in 2012 also. I think people may try to build those kind of sets, right? I mean, those are fun. A 2018 Prism set would be cool to build and not that difficult. Sets that have some sort of meaning to people who are collecting. The sets that were built by me were the 1980s Topps baseball sets, 792 cards in each one of them. Why? Because that's what I was doing. As a kid, I was watching baseball, and these guys meant something. And they, not all of them. I could have done it without the Kent T. Cove or the Dickie Thon, but I remember them because they were building the set. I will also say this.
T206 set.
Throw this out there. Let me throw this out there, okay? Set building is a vintage thing, right? There are going to be different sets, and I'll answer your question in a sec. Why I think set building doesn't happen as much now is, especially baseball card set building, those baseball cards came out at a very different time. You didn't have a supercomputer in your pocket with more computing ability than it took to send the first men to the moon in the 60s. You have that now. So you want to find out the stats of a player. You want to find out what that player did last year. You pull out your phone and you get yesterday's game and yesterday's, and it's right there at the ready, right? Baseball cards with stats on the back and a player card, that was like your only way really of collecting anyone and getting the stats. And, that was like a cool way of being a fan, I think.
Prospecting? In a sense, when I say, and I want to define prospect. I want to define prospecting, stay with me. When I say prospecting, I mean having vested interest in that upcoming season.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. But I don't think that's what it was about. I don't think it was, vested interest in that coming season. I don't think people were building sets because they thought, hey, I need to have everybody in that set because just in case this guy has a great season, my set's going to be worth more money. That's not why set building happens. Set building happens because people want to complete a set. That seems like a foreign concept to you.
But
it's not. It has nothing to do. Yeah, I'm sure. But
it's like chopping wood for the sake of chopping wood.
People want to build sets, right? I think there are people who build a set because they think that set's going to be more valuable one day, and I think there are people who build the sets because they just want to own that card. For whatever the reason is, the nostalgia of it, you name it. Like I'm thinking about building a Scoring King set in like BGS 8. Because I like that set. I remember pulling those cards, but I'm not buying it because I think, wow, I'm going to be able to sell it in 10 years for significantly more than I buy it. I buy it because I want to look at it. Right? I want to own it. I think it's cool. It'll remind me of, building that, opening those Fleer Ultra boxes as a kid, going to shows with my dad. It reminds me of a different time, not just in my life, but in the world,
So, since we're going down this memory lane, I very much enjoy it. Picture this. Maybe close your eyes. You got that big cash out. Beautiful home office, little podcast area, and you have a backdrop. And on that backdrop, you get 10 memorabilia collectible items. Helmets, Type 1 photos, cards, tickets, jerseys. What do you have?
You mean I could buy whatever I want? Like these are just like
buy whatever you
want. I could buy anything. Like I could buy a Mantle PSA 10.
If that's what you want, you could have it there. But that's just one. I want to know the other 10. I think the interest isn't that you have a Mantle behind you. Amazing. You'll have a Mantle, but so will everybody else at the show too. That's not a low pop card, guys. Hate to break it to you, vintage.
But a 10.
Or 10. A 10. Might be restored. You never know.
There's more to it than you probably realize.
I think our audience gives you a lot of credit, so they think you're going to have some originality. So you have the 10 Mantle. What else do you have? Do you have a Jackie Robinson bat? Do you have, your dad's playing jersey?
Do you
have Michael Jordan standing behind you?
Memorabilia. I mean, there are a lot of really. I think game used items for people who use them before people thought about keeping game used items would be pretty amazing to have. Like a Ty Cobb bat, maybe something like that. Maybe
Ty Cobb bat.
Like if you were able to find like the home plate that Jackie Robinson stole home with against the Yankees in the World Series. You know what I mean? Like something that is
an
game used and
Cobb bat.
It's game used and it's got a story to it, something relevant. And so think about it, right? Why do people pay so much money for Aaron Judge's 60-second home run ball, right? It's not just the ball. It's not just the game used. It's the story to it, right? So how about the ball that
was sold on clearance at Golden? You didn't hear?
So you understand what I'm saying, right? If we're going down the road of game used memorabilia, I would have to think about like the most iconic sports moments of all time, right? And I would try to, grab a piece of memorabilia from those, right?
Mantle 10, Ty Cobb bat, Jackie Robinson home stolen base.
Yeah.
Patrick Ewing dunking on Michael Jordan, the ball.
No,
the net, the rim.
I mean,
Patrick
it would have to be. Listen, it's GOAT's stuff, right? I mean, if somebody found the jersey from Tom Brady's debut game where he came in and replaced Drew Bledsoe, that would touch two things. I mean, one, it would be an amazing jersey, but two, I was a Bledsoe fan. So, that would have like additional meaning for me, right? I might rip that jersey up,
He's going to build a mannequin out of his Bledsoe slabs and put the game-worn jersey on it.
But I mean, that would be, if you're talking memorabilia, right? Memorabilia is it's got to be something that's scarce, but it's got to be something that is actually linked to an iconic moment in sports.
Evander Holyfield's frozen ear.
Like people pay for Michael Jordan's debut, Evander Holyfield's ear. Yes, no. But people pay for like Jordan debut tickets a lot, right? A Jordan debut ticket. But what about the ball or his uniform from his first pro game? These things are basically like priceless, So, memorabilia, if your question really is,
why do you go first and not last or iconic? Like, why Jordan's
last is probably valuable too. To me, that's because of how I grew up collecting the rookie debut.
Flu game
ball. Flu game would be amazing too. Flu game would be amazing too. I would probably have to wear a mask because I don't want to catch the flu. But yeah, I mean, you are on the right path, right? So Jordan, there would be several. The flu game is an amazing story, right? I mean,
the backboard from LeBron's greatest dunk.
How about the Last Dance clinching jersey from him, right? What about look, for me, I remember Shaq was huge. Like I'm a big Shaq fan. Like I was a kid.
Remember Shaq was huge.
But what about Shaq? What about the broken backboard? That Shaq in the net game where he broke the thing. Like that would be cool. Like have the basket that Shaq broke. Like that's an amazing.
It's broken. Altered. We're going back to restored. Restored.
Dude, you asked the question. I'm trying to answer it as honestly as I can. I mean, this is. I'm trying. I'm not really a huge sports memorabilia collector. I'm sure there are guys who can, who would be able to chime in and probably do better. But I think if I were getting into sports memorabilia, it would be these iconic moments. Things that were actually used in iconic moments. That would be something I'd look for. The set collecting, by the way, before you go crazy, before you go away from it, it's something that it's difficult to explain. No, it's difficult to explain. It really is. But I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years or 15 years, kids, young collectors who are collecting now, who have more disposable income and they're 35, 40, whatever, they're looking back, if they're building the Kaboom sets.
Okay.
Not necessarily have to be PSA 10 or whatever, but that is it's like the PMG, right? It's something that, speaks for the era, speaks for the collecting at the time, right? I could see somebody from this.
Stay on that, because that's actually an interesting one because that does include every player.
No, correct.
That includes the players, and that's NBA and NFL predominantly, which is like the current number one and number two sport, in my opinion. Don't yell at me.
Yeah.
And it has guys that I'm going to remember like Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Dame Lillard. And I'm going to be like, dude, these guys were legit.
These guys were great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see what we do with Dennis Rodman, or, people like, oh, Patrick Ewing was the man, or Alonzo Mourning. You guys you don't understand how great this guy was. Yes. It's sort of
see
that link back, And it doesn't just have to be those, you know, and it depends on the size of the set.
Here's the challenge. You say before you go crazy, you went. Now, what I'm going to say is going to seem so out of context.
Oh, shoot.
I was going to
You always say out of context stuff, so you might as well.
Where does a piece of clothing from when Abe Lincoln was assassinated fall into that? See, it sounds so stupid. It sounds so grim.
No, I
in the moment, it would have been perfect.
I mean, it really depends on what you collect. To me, that it is very grim, right? It reminds me of the joke. It's like, yes, but other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, what'd you think of the show? You know, it's like to me, it's morbid, but it's obviously amazing. I mean, I've seen swatches of like the curtains from the box that he was in. You know, like they cut up the curtains from Ford's Theater.
How do they have that?
You have to trust the authenticator. You know, there was a guy with dinosaur teeth at the Briganti thing, and I'm like, how do you know that's a dinosaur tooth? And he's like, you trust the authenticators, and I'm like, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying a tooth. Thank you, but no, thank you. You know, like,
it's hard to trust the authenticators when you're in this space. As a newbie, well, with cards, I mean, but like when it gets to things that we can't anyway. Any other things that are top of mind? Anything that you want to kind of get off your chest? Anything you're thinking of? Mint, you know, any shows you're coming? You know,
I'm excited for Mint. I'm excited for Mint. I was gonna bring a card to give to PSA. But in reading the fine print, I don't know that PSA is going to actually take my card because they're not doing. There's a lot of limitations on what they're doing at the show. They're not doing like reholders. They're not doing like reviews. So I think it's basically just, you know, raw card to. I'm still going to bring it and see, and I'll let you guys know, you know, afterwards, you know, what they do. But you know. I read the stuff yesterday and I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'll be able to like, you know, accomplish my task here at the show that I was hoping to do. But I'm looking forward to Mint, man. I'm looking forward to Mint. I'm curious about the Panini Monopoly Prism thing. There's a lot of speakers. I don't know how many we'll get to see. There's a lot of cool speakers, people from the UFC again, you know, brand folks. So, you know, some of the panels look pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited for that. It's a week and change away, right? You're leaving in less than a week. Exciting.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Monday.
Exciting. Provocative. Gets the people going.
Maybe the most anticipated Fed announcement in years. They decide if they're raising the rates tomorrow, keeping them the same, or lowering them. Prediction?
And keep it the same for now. Keep it the same for now. I think they keep it the same, and you know, it's a measured approach. They say, you know, given what's happened with the banks and whatnot, we're not going to make a move right now, but we're going to keep an eye on the, you know, financial system, and then, you know, reconvene at a later date and come up with, you know, continue. I think they pause now, and there's no. That's just for now.
Don't muddy the waters. Don't, you know.
Yeah, the market was up the last 2 days. I think the market was up today. The market was up on Friday overall. I think that's what they're anticipating. I think they're anticipating.
Market's up 2% today. Yeah. Amazon announced that they're cutting 9,000 more jobs to 27,000, and the market was up 2%. Nasdaq.
I think it's anticipation of, you know, a settling announcement tomorrow. Also, you know, some rundowns. You know, you're seeing bank failures, but at the same time, you're seeing, you know, the system sort of step in and, you know, make sure that, you know, the overall system is taken care of. It's not what we speak too much about, but that's why I anticipate, you know, a inaction from the Fed tomorrow.
I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. I always think that it's funny. Like we go something medical, COVID, war, economy, and we don't really talk about the first. We didn't talk about COVID on this thing. We don't really talk about the war, but it does feel, and I could be wrong, that the economy does impact this. I sometimes think it's all a big game of kind of like musical chairs. None of it really matters. And it's just like they're praying, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, fear. There are things that scare people. And you just named a bunch of them.
The greed index is the highest it's been in a long time, by the way. Thank you all for stories, for posts, for your DMs, for your texts about the Beckett free grading for Tigers. Means a lot. It's the least we could do. Hopefully we keep that stuff coming. The trout market has over 10,000 PSA 10s and BGS 9.5s. Okay.
Of his 2011 update base.
Correct.
Okay.
If his career goes the way it's going, Where does his market end up? And is Luka on the same collision course as him?
Maybe. I mean, that's good. Which one do you want to do first?
Which one do you want to do first, Cage?
Let's talk about Trout. It's funny because USA Japan looks like it's about to happen for the WBC final, which is, Ohtani against Trout, which is pretty cool. It's nice to see, Trout playing what some would consider meaningful games. Most people in the United States don't really follow the World Baseball Classic. As a matter of fact, while the U.S. team is stacked with sluggers, they don't really send too many pitching aces to pitch for them, whereas Japan usually is a favorite because they send all their aces. So it's an interesting thing to watch. It's fun to see him and the other, teammates get excited, about playing, I guess, repping the country and that kind of stuff. As far as Trout and the comparison to Luka, I can see it. I can understand it. I mean, Trout came in, early, a lot of hoopla, a lot of stuff,
a lot of career
expectations,
stats,
right?
A lot of career stats, a lot of best player by this age. You know how ESPN loves that. But then here we are. He's still just as incredible, but huge pop, not enough to sustain it. And it's not this fall off a cliff, but it's this slow bleed where people kind of lose faith.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I get it. It's less. So the comparison, I'll have to just stop really quick. Basketball is very different than baseball. And I guess it's part of the reason why a lot of the newer collectors haven't really jumped into baseball. Part of it is you don't have Prism, licensed Prism, right? You have a different sort of set, right? Topps Chrome, it doesn't have Prism Gold. It's not as easy, I think, for the younger collector to jump in and, National Treasures, got the RPA out of 99, go out there and get a Prism Gold. You could do it with football. It was easy for them to go from basketball to football. Not so much for baseball. Also, baseball is not as much championship driven. The traditional baseball collector was not always an all or nothing. You win a championship or you're a bust type of, collector. Otherwise there wouldn't be as many lunatic Griffey collectors out there.
Are there actually, though, baseball collectors in the sense, like what I've seen is vintage collectors, yes, and then prospecting. But you have these guys in the middle, these Mookie Betts, these Nolan Arenados, these Aaron Judges, these Bryce Harpers. They sort of fall by the wayside.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So what's interesting about it, and believe it or not, it actually goes into kind of set collecting. It's a cool dovetail. Is, I mean, Trout in 2011, you would have hoped that this was so pre-bubble, similar to what we talk about with like Giannis's Prism card from 2013, and you're like, wow, people weren't talking about sports cards then. This whole COVID boom, shouldn't impact that. But when you look at the pop report, it clearly does. And I think
I was surprised to see that number.
Funny about it, what I would say a better comparison for Luka now is actually Griffey. Somebody who really put up a bunch of stats, a lot of stats. Never really had the steroid, attributed to him. Young star, did it real young, came up at, 19 years old or whatever it was, and just never won a championship, but had a lot of accolades, had a lot of, personal, accomplishments, but didn't win a championship.
Okay, the only difference between Trout and Griffey is likability, marketability. Everything else is
the other difference, I think, is I would consider Griffey's rookie cards came up in a total bubble time. And I might consider Trout to more of like a Giannis or a Dame Lillard. You know what I mean? Somebody like that who's going to put up numbers, who when all is said and done is going to put up stats. Their rookie cards came slightly before the crazy boom. You know what I mean?
The boom, you mean, is the demand. It's a lot of people who have been buying. Yeah. It's a lot of people buying their first card, basically.
Correct. And that was Griffey. That was 89. That was the expansion, right? And there are guys who came earlier than Griffey who have rookie cards. I mean, you talk about it also. It's funny. You have every decade, you have the Arenados. You have those guys, the Mookie Betts, the guys who are great, who, I don't know if they have long-term collectability. We've talked about this, and it really is a relevant thing. Like Tony Gwynn rookie card from 1983. right? That's a mass-produced card. It's not rare by any stretch. It's not even rare in high grade, right? But it's it's a card that I would say sort of predates the crazy boom of Griffey, right? So I mean, there's a lot of different comparisons you can make. I know what you're saying, and whether you're going to compare him to Griffey or to Trout, yeah, sure. Luka has the ability to basically turn into something that is difficult to collect, right? Because what's scarce, and then you get into manufactured scarcity. Like people would say, Luka's gold prism out of 10 is the card, right? But it's just a parallel of every other prism from 2018. Parallel. And how come the black gold doesn't sell for I
actually like the black gold parallel.
So do I, but it sells for significantly less than the regular gold,
My concern or my thought process is this. You got on me a few weeks ago saying you don't buy Cam Thomas now, you sell now.
Yep.
Remember? But how much am I into Cam Thomas? I got one card for $100.
Yep.
The bag holders with Luka and Trout, when I say bag holders, I'll say potential bag holders with Luka and Trout far exceed any type of prospecting on any other player.
Yep.
Is that fair to say, though?
Yeah. 100%.
And I keep seeing the slow bleed in his cards and the market, you could say, or whatever. But I think, just every year, 10% of the believers in the Trout market fall off as they realize he gets older. And I think that's going to start happening with Luka as well if there isn't some sort of potential future in sight.
Right. No, I mean, and so what's amazing about it is I think if you went back 5 years, Griffey, the comparison that I made, right? Maybe 10 years. There are not as many Griffey collectors, right? And the Griffey market wasn't doing anything. As a matter of fact, I could tell you for certain that I bought the 89 Upper Deck Griffey PSA 10 for less than $400. I don't know what it's at now, but I know it went to like 4,000. It's probably back down, right? But I, if you were to pull up the chart on that, I'll bet you, even though now people are like, oh, Griffey, he's the man. There's so many Griffey collectors, compare a whole deal. But if you look at that 89 Upper Deck Griffey, it's probably for a decade leading up to 2016, 17, it's probably a pretty flat line. It's probably the same couple $100, $300-$400 card. And, it took a boom cycle for even Griffey to get appreciated, right? So I don't know what's going to happen with Luka, right? I have no idea, right? And it really depends on what happens with the hobby. Because the hobby went through a period there of, 15, 20 years where there wasn't this humongous collectors. And it just so happened collectors like me came back and said, I'm going to build my Griffey collection. Are you pulling up the chart? Sure, that's cool. But there you go. There you go. I mean, if you pull like the multi-year, what is this? A couple years?
2 years.
2 years. So I would go back before that for when I would buy, but you can see, I mean, it's
if I could ask Card Ladder, I think that adding a potentially like a 5-year
go to all time
option, but all time, here's the issue.
Look at that. That's exactly what I said was going to be a straight line basically for a decade.
But that's everything because the scale went crazy from 2019 on. So this sort of 2004 to 2019 is sort of irrelevant if I can't zoom in on it. You know what I mean?
So can I say it's actually very relevant? Because we're going to soon be at that inflection point where why is it that we're just going to have another 2019 and cards are going to go back up? Why isn't just that same 2004 to 2017? Why can't that happen again? You know what I mean?
I can do it, I guess, right here. I'll have to play around with it, not to waste your guys' time.
But I mean, listen, the pop on that. Look at the pop before you close it out. There's like 4,000 tens, right?
There are.
So I mean, this is a good comp for your Luka, and the $2,000. You see, it's kind of sliding. It's one of those cards that, just like you said with Luka, the prism might continue to go down, silver might continue to go down. This card might continue to go down. It has since it ran up.
It's not that it might continue to go down. How can it not with so much supply?
So there's only one answer to that, right?
The retail, the guys that bought their first card in 2018. Let's think about the person who bought his first card in 2018 as like a Joe Schmo Andrew.
Yeah.
That some people are like hedge fund guy, investment bankers.
Maybe. But they still got in because of the run. They got in because this became an alternate asset class.
But they're not buying Zion Prism for 50. They might be buying they might be buying Griffey's 10.
So let's look at Griffey. Pull up a Griffey Skybox Rubies. Okay.
People love those rubies right now.
So, but there's the difference, right? So it's very
99.
possible. Yeah, 99 is fine. You know, it's the one where he looked like he's kind of sliding. You know, he's sliding into a second or whatever it is. He's stealing a base. And look at the chart on that, right? Yeah, that's a cool card.
Raw's tough. Let's go BGS 9.
Yeah, so I mean,
There's
you know, it doesn't sell that often. But I mean, look, the card's numbered. I think it was 50 of them, right? So this is the difference, right? So what I think has happened here is I think that, you know, you're saying the market for Luka. I say it depends on the card. It depends on, you know, and we did that clip the other day of something that we talked about, like there's always going to be enough collectors to collect a certain type of card, the right card for the right player. I think what you just did there with those charts is, yeah, Luka, Mike Trout, Ken Griffey Jr., the 89 Upper Deck, the 2011 base, the 2018 base and or silver for Luka, those cards, unless Fanatics comes in, unless we have another humongous boom, unless we have sustained
Fanatics comes in and buys like 10% of them.
Well, I mean, they have done buybacks, but the point being, it is still supply and demand. And the cards you're talking about there are thousands of. There's no shortage of. And right now, there's more supply than demand. But that Griffey card that we just looked at, where there's 50 of, with the increase of people who came into the hobby now, right? That's not a card I needed to have as a kid. In 1999, Skybox Rubies, I was 22 years old. I wasn't buying
know about that card?
I didn't know about that card at all. But when I came back in and the second time around here started researching and said, all right, I got to find cards, not manufactured scarcely, like actual scarce cards that I think are cool. That's one. So I own that card. That's why
there's 6 of them.
Yeah, so
in this grade and 5 in the other.
They don't sell, and I think I'm not selling mine. You know, not for a while. It's not a card that I would list as, oh, I got to get rid of this card. That's the difference, right? And I think there will be cards for Luka that eventually fall into that category. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now. There's definitely ones for Trout. You know, PWCC just had a Hope Diamond version. I know it's just a parallel.
Jersey number.
It was jersey number. It was out of 60. PSA 9 sells. You know, that's a cool.
It sold
card
for the exact same price as the Diamond Anniversary 9, not jersey number, sold I think 7 or 8 months ago. I'm trying to remember.
So it's coming down.
Sign and Slabbed. I've said this to you before. I think he does great auction recaps.
Mm-hmm.
I like auction recaps with a POV. I hate when people just do data. Anyone could do that.
This is what it's sold for. That's what it's sold for. You like
give a point of view.
Okay.
Even if it's funny, like do your thing, but have a POV for sure.
All right. So, I mean, that's my thought on Trout versus Luka. And I mean, look, really, you can summarize it as don't miss the forest for the trees for these things. I think a lot of people did, myself included. You know, hey, let me get as many Prism rookies as I can. Let me buy as many, you know, Tatis cards as I can. Because, you know, as the demand is increasing, those cards, the supply works for the demand, right? But when the demand decreases and the supply increases, you lose something just trading in liquid cards. That's what those were. Those were the cards where somebody came in and said, I want to have a Tatis. That's what I'm going to buy. It takes a while for a consumer, the Tatis fan, the Juan Soto fan, to be educated in what the better card, what the
I would
actually card would be.
I agree with everything you said. I would change one word. It's not that they wanted to buy it. It's that they had to buy it because the market was running and they're like, I need to have stake in the game. I know I'm going to make money.
And cards weren't coming back from PSA. There were
gotta buy this
factors. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I love it. I like the topic. I'd love to hear what people say on that. We'll get some comments. We'll get some questions. Maybe.
What's the next baseball card you're going to buy? Not Type 1 photo, not your Duncan Gold. By the way, Duncan got a shout out today for having the best. Did you see his record? He's won 70% of his games for his career.
So the next baseball card I'm going to buy,
yeah.
I need to add a Willie Mays to my collection. I think maybe a 51 Bowman, a nicely centered one, good eye appeal. I don't have a 51 Bowman Mays. I like that better than the 52 Topps. I also need to add a Jackie Robinson. I have some autographs, but I don't have a card. I don't know whether I'll add the 48 Leaf or the 52 Topps first, but I would like to own both of those. I have 3 of the 4 Babe Ruth Goudies. I have the green, I have the batting pose, and I have the yellow. I don't have the red portrait of him. So I will eventually be adding at least a 4 of that because I think I have 2 4.5s out of 4, the other 3 that I have. So I definitely have a list. I have, when I told you to do that in the beginning of the year, I actually do it. When I say, hey, you know what, make a list of the cards you actually want to add to your collection. Don't chase other cards. Stick to those, wait for those to come up, sell the stuff that you don't want, and make sure you have the dry powder ready in case those cards come up. I do that. So, I'm not giving advice that I don't. And by the way, for another episode, we can formulate that and spell it out a little more if you guys like. Set collecting. I don't want to short shrift it, but, I don't know if we have enough time. But here's my thought on set collecting. You have to be careful with set collecting, right? And you have to know why you're collecting the set. Let me give you my own personal fun. Pokemon. My stupid set that Andrew was, irate about, the whole deal. When I started collecting that set and said, I'm going to build this set, it wasn't because my son at the time said, wow, we're going to, we should collect Pokemon, which he does now and he loves. And he loves some of the cards in the set, not all, right? It was because I thought at the time those cards were going to run in price and that they were undervalued and that set would be more valuable than it was when I started building it. That premise was correct, right? However, it takes time to build a set, right? It also takes money. You have to now buy these pieces and search them out and make a checklist and find some here and some there. And as you're building it, even if you were right the year before, the prices, if you were right, the prices are starting to come up. And as you're building this, go ahead.
But why would I even build it in the first place?
So that's the question, right? I thought the set at the time was going to be, something that was valuable.
I just wonder in today's day and age, like when people say set collecting, I think of these iconic sets. 1986 Fleer, 2018 Prism, 2012 Prism. I assume that the goal of set collecting is the display factor, which I don't think we talk about enough, but I remember we had Kobe East Coast who has the display in the back with all his rubies and all his amazing baseball cards. And when he speaks about that, it's for the display. And I think displaying a complete set is pretty cool. But I wonder in today's day and age where individual cards have been outselling even like complete sets that sell on auction, if that stands the test of time.
With nearly 40 years as the most trusted resource for collectors, dating back to the first Beckett magazine in 1984, Beckett has been the brand that bridges generations of the hobby. We're happy to be partnering with Beckett and look forward to keeping you all updated on the big things happening at the company in 2023. Beckett. It's the name you know and the name you can trust.